Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and I'm thrilled to have Mr. Scott Allen in the factory with me today. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. That voice, that sound, I know you as the audiobook guy. You are an epic voiceover narrator. We met through Ingrid Moon. She did the novella Biohunter, and you were both on the podcast. And I put in clips and I've listened to your stuff. Kudos to you as the consummate VO guy. And now you're entering the realm of authorship. You are now, at the very least, a double threat. You were a single threat, and now you're a double threat. So welcome to the party, pal.
Thank you so much. We'll know if I'm a double threat after some reviews come in.
Don't worry about it. It's a friend of mine said, if you write, you're published, which means you have put pen to paper, finger to keyboard. You've completed a novel. I've checked it out, and I think it's terrific.
Thank you.
I think you are an author, sir, regardless of the paparazzi.
Right?
Yes, yes. But of course, I'm confident you'll get some great reviews with this. The book is called The Aerie Protocol. Yep. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers, and I want to let the author himself describe the plot and themes. But what I got out of it is a take on climate, is a take on self-actualization, where the character realizes that he can't hide behind the persona of his career and needs to do stuff and become part of the world. And in becoming part of the world, he becomes more of his true self. Do I more or less get the
there
gist?
It is, yeah, basically.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So what inspired you to A, take pen to paper after being, the mic guy?
Yeah.
And B, what about this theme? Where did this come from?
This is like varied career number 9 or something, I think. Man, I've done so many things over my life, but one of the things I've always done is I've always scribbled down ideas for stories. Or back in literally not 1994, I wrote a series of short stories and a little anthology book that I thought I might one day publish, that's been sitting on my hard drive of various computers, untouched forever. And then one of the ideas was what turned into this story. And this one stuck with me the most because I had this idea. And honestly, it was about the first time I got in an airplane and I was flying through the clouds, and this thing came to me about, what if there was a city up here, right? What if we saw this glint of steel or glass or something, and there were just people floating above the earth in these hidden cities we never knew about. And it was nothing more than that for years because I couldn't figure out how I wanted to work it. And I kept jotting down different ideas. And then finally, in the last few years, with just sort of the climate change discussion and the things that have happened, I started thinking, what if all of this is not caused by climate change, but caused by something unknown to us, right? And so it just became this idea for this book that I finally said, let's take this short story idea, turn it into something different. Completely went a different route with some of the characters that I had originally envisioned. Because at first I was thinking about having these two sort of maybe teenagey kind of kids that were traversing the atmosphere and somehow ending up getting caught on Earth and have to figure out how to get away with people not knowing who they were, right? Stuff like that. Prequel. But anyway, so I just kind of changed everything up. I came up with this idea. I came up with the idea watching the news or something of the main character being a photographer, someone who was always behind the view of the lens, but never really got involved, and took it to that next level of never got involved. Took photos of people getting shot or killed or maimed in war and just literally being the guy behind the camera. And this is the first time he makes the decision to if I don't get involved, things could go really bad south. I'm going to do this new thing, right? So, and it just progresses from there. I mean, it just became a thing that just started to flow as I started to pour it out onto the old, keyboard and computer.
Science fiction as a genre loves the counterfactual conditional, the what if.
Right?
And the best ideas come with that, what if.
Yep.
And sounds like you had the what if of this Sky City. What if
Right.
this photographer actually starts to take control of his own life and take
Yeah.
accountability
Yeah.
and turn a passive professional existence into an active humanistic one, and you put him
Right.
into a circumstance where he finally has a chance to do exactly that.
Right. Well, and and like I said, I've been a sort of an avid jotter downer of thought. I won't call myself a writer, so to speak, in form, but as I was writing, I was like, what would make it more interesting, right? Is there the villainous character, right? What's the antagonist protagonist thing? Is it, I mean, he finds this city and what happens, like, why is he there? So just as I started putting more down and thinking about it, I new characters kind of came to mind, and some got left on the cutting room floor, so to speak, and others are in the book. So and I also, I don't know anything about time frame or length, or I was like, is this going to be a novella, is this a book, is this I don't know, so I just let it kind of go until it was done.
That's the best way to do it. A not so sympathetic journalist asked Abraham Lincoln how long a president's legs should be because he was tall and lanky, probably suffered from Marfan syndrome. And good old Abe, in his usual wit, responded instantly, long enough to reach the ground. So
Exactly.
I think as a writer, that's bang on point, which is how much can you really plan, especially when the dramatic arc of the thing emerges out of the characters being thrown into this world that you've created.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just kind of what happened. It just went from being this, sort of few jots of a short story from some years ago to why not do something with it? It just kept coming back to me. And it's the first of, there's probably, of the 15 or so stories I wrote down, there's a good 5, 6, 7 that I'm like, if I can do it with this one, let's see what happens. So, I am already thinking about another version of this. I mean, not version, but actually the prequel of this book, as well as another story I've really enjoyed for years in my brain. And I'm like, well, I might as well share it with other people. So, we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. Be all you can be. And in the immortal words of Sam Spade of the Maltese Falcon, why not?
Yeah, right.
Go for it. I mean, you're a creative person. While I'm reading your prose, I heard your voice
Oh,
because you have a very distinctive voice, and I did notice a heightened sensitivity to flow and to pronunciation. Honestly,
yeah.
it's mellifluous. Is that how you say it? Where it's got a nice rhythm to it. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, did you actually read it out loud to yourself? Did you have the voice in your head as you wrote? You've done so much audiobook narration of other people's stuff. Now it's your stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that I have done a good number of audiobooks. I love taking other people's stories and turning them into characters and narration and giving them as much depth as I can. And then as I started to read my own book out loud, at first I was like, yikes, what have I done? And then that's what also forced me to sort of go through and refine. I'm an impatient person too. So I had a conversation even with Ingrid, because she's like, what do you mean you wrote a book? I'm like, I don't know. It's just a thing. And she started telling me about all these things I should do and line edit this and that. And I was like, I don't have the patience for this. I'm doing it myself. So
100%. That's my ongoing sparring with her. Ingrid is the most buttoned up writer I know. She does rigorous beta reading
yeah,
testing.
yeah,
She,
yeah,
she takes in the feedback of her fans. From chapter 18 to 19, I got a little lost there, Ingrid. Can you clarify that?
yeah,
And she'll leap on her keyboard and
yeah, no,
she'll make it happen. Her
yeah,
covers are gorgeous.
yeah, Yeah.
She does everything the right way.
Yeah.
And I do everything the wrong way, which is like, this is a cool idea. I'm just going for it.
I'm hoping I'm a happy medium. I did do a beta reader thing with a few people I know that I trust, that I know they like sci-fi, or friends or a few family members. My dad is an avid reader and he loves sci-fi, so he was the first person I sent it off to, and he was like, at that time he was like, there's a lot of descriptive stuff going on in here, but when I got through it, the point is I didn't stop reading it. I couldn't put it down. The story was good, right? So I knew I was on the right path. I just had to go in and update it and get rid of some prose and change it around a bit, to make sure that it made more sense. So after having about 5 different people give me some feedback, I really just dove in a period of like a week and a half and re-edited a huge amount of the book until I felt it was. And then reading it out loud at that point, like you mentioned, I was like, oh, now I can actually read it out loud and not get all tongue twisted in my own, verbiage, because sometimes that's the hardest part about narrating anything. And if you can't read it out loud, you can't read it in your head. So,
That's an old Einstein thing, that if you can't articulate a thought in one or two clear sentences, then it's most certainly wrong.
mhm.
And from the point of a writer, if you can't read it out loud in a clear, concise way that's
Yeah,
instantly comprehensible, then you should probably rewrite it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's what ended up happening in a few places where it was just like, okay, I've got some tongue twisters in here, so
I'm learning a little bit. I'm doing a spin-off prequel of my big science fiction novel, and I sent the first 3 chapters and a plot summary to 20 people, writers, publishers, even
there you
an
go.
illustrator, and I got about 20 different takes on it.
Oh, wow.
So, so in ways, I'm kind of like, it's
Yeah,
everyone's got an opinion, as they
yeah,
say. But I did learn some important stuff. And if you are an indie writer, even an illustrator, anyone involved as a creative,
yeah.
getting feedback can't hurt. Throw it out there and see what people.
Take it for what it's worth based on the people you sent it to as well, right?
Exactly.
So I know some of my friends are totally retentive about certain things and that they're going to be like, I don't like this, but that's okay. What I wanted is, at the end of the day, what was their final thought? And all of them came back with, this is a really good story. I really enjoyed it. So now it was just about fine tuning it to make myself happy as well.
Absolutely. And at the end of that proverbial author's day, that's criteria number one.
Yes.
Whether a million people read it or five, whether you're the next Andy Weir or not,
Right.
there's
Right.
intrinsic satisfaction in writing your own
Yeah.
story and
Yes.
getting it out there.
For sure.
Regarding your voiceover work, how do you balance the different parts of your creativity? Because now you're it's kind of you started in rhythm guitar and now you're going into lead. And was there any kind of short circuiting or disconnect? Is there an imposter syndrome that you were grappling with going into this? And how,
Actually,
how does it feel to now be that double threat?
actually, the thing that was probably the most difficult about the process occurring recently is that I was just finishing up a 3 book series of a little crime thriller audiobook that I did. And then I actually don't tell anyone, but I'm working on Ingrid's final book. So I'm in the middle of, I'm recording right now. And then to be recording someone else's work and then writing your own and then keeping it all sort of separated in your noggin, that at some points I was like, I am just going to have to step away for right now, because you start to get caught up in, I don't want to sound like, I don't want my writing to come off as somebody else's because I'm doing their work right now, but I think I'm pretty good at being able to separate that out pretty quickly. I have a pretty good separation in my brain of, like, when I'm reading something, I can kind of say, give me 10 minutes and now I'll focus on just this. So it turned out to be okay for all the because otherwise I was like, what am I going to do, sequester myself for 6 months in a cabin in the woods somewhere like in the movies?
Yeah, we're all grappling with that balance between compartmentalization and being overwhelmed with
Yeah,
too
yeah,
much stimuli. And you
yeah,
need input for the output, but it could be overwhelming. And sometimes even the modalities criss and cross, where you publish and then you repurpose and then you tweet it and then you do a video and
Sure.
then you sell your book in person and then you're barking it online and then you've got your website and then you
Yep.
got your side hustle and then
Yep.
you got your day job and woohoo.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all of those things, right? It's everything that is all in one place. But it's like if the creative thought weren't strong enough to want to put it down on paper, so to speak, I could have just stopped and it could have sat there for another 10 years as notes from the original book. But it just kept. I just couldn't let it go. I just every time I would fly, especially for this book, I was like, dang it, that Cloud City thing is just really, how do I make that happen? And so finally, I just said, we're going to do it. So
That's the itch you finally scratched, and I
yeah.
think we're all better for it. Now I'm going to ask you the dumb question and the obvious one, and I'm sure everyone's wondering who's going to do the audiobook.
Yeah, I, I already told a couple of my friends that I told about it. I said, hey, I got this book coming out, and they're like, are you going to do an audiobook? I said, not until I get reviews. I want. Yeah, I'm not. It's not on my. It's. I will probably do my own audiobook, but I am. I want to make sure that I feel like people are enjoying the book because to me, doing an audiobook just to do an audiobook isn't really a thing. You know what I mean? I know that I have done them for people before, and I've charged them a reasonable rate for the amount of time it takes me to do it. And then if it doesn't sell or I don't see it selling, I feel so bad A for them, but B, I'm kind of like, okay, that if it made you feel better, I mean, I guess that's great to have it, but I always think the story should be so enticing that people really want to hear the audiobook, you know? So
Modality does make a difference. A lot of folks just won't buy a book
this
because
is also true.
they only listen, and they even call it. This is now a term,
Yeah.
and it's kind of humorous, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they read audiobooks. They use the verb read an audiobook.
I have a friend who tells me, like, I read 16 books last month. I'm like, what? No, you didn't. She's in the car. I'm like, I got it.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
it's adapting the language and it's recalibrating how we consume content. And
You're going to make me do more work. You're going to make me have to do it.
that's true, but at the same time, you've got a huge target audience who
Yeah.
would embrace the Aerie Protocol immediately if you make it available in that format, who otherwise might not be exposed to your great story because it's alphanumeric. They
Yeah.
they they
That's
don't
true.
have the time. They don't put that into their day.
Yeah. That is true.
So sounds to me I'm gonna do it if I could see the money.
It's not even, it is more about wanting to make sure that I think people are enjoying it. There's that again, it's my first time doing this, and there's that nervousness of what if it sucks? And so even though I had some beta readers come out and read it and tell me they enjoyed it, etc., it's just that it's the first time putting this kind of a thing out there into the universe that's my work. So it's a lot more personal than audiobooks. I didn't write them, but I know I do the work. I know I bring them to life. I know I take the time to help develop those characters, but they're already pre-written, right? So there's only a finite amount of work I can do to the story. This is just mine, you
Sounds
know.
to me like you also have the safety of the proscenium arch in ways, which is it's another person's content and you're performing it.
Yeah.
So if the screenplay or the play is it could be all that. You're not being judged per se on the pure content. You're
Right.
delivering a performance. And for the
Right.
first time in your career, these worlds are crossing over
Yeah.
where if they're going to judge you, it's not only on the quality of your voicing, but it's on the content itself. And that's a
Yeah.
double. It's like you're naked twice.
Yeah.
It's like come and judge me for my audio, and while you're at it, judge me for my book too.
That's kind of it.
Yeah. Well, I get it. I get it. As just the bald guy on the other side of the screen here, I would only suggest that I read the thing and it's good.
Yeah.
B, you're terrific in terms of doing your voiceovers. That's self-evident because you've had a legit successful career for some time doing it. How
Yeah.
many books have you voiced so far?
It's not as many as I would love to have say I could, but I know that because I'm very picky about the things that I like to do, and I only really got into it about maybe 7, 8 years ago full time. So I think I've done about 30 books. I've done some multicast stuff where I'm, play a couple of characters or two, three, four characters in a book, but not narrate it. Then I've done the full on narration. And then, like the last one I did with Ingrid, the Biohunter, which was very fun. I narrated and did some of the characters, but then I also produced and edited and put together the other actors into the book. So that was the first time I had done the sort of the full multicast production side, which was an interesting. I'd do it again, but I definitely do it differently. So fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, I'll put a link to that podcast where I actually had Ingrid and you on, and you guys talked about process. That was
Yeah,
a terrific conversation. For
yeah,
this book, let's say hypothetically, you got the 5-star reviews, you get some press, people like it, your confidence builds in terms of the talent that you bring and the results that you bear for your Aerie Protocol.
yeah.
How would you approach the audio? Would you do a multi-voice
You know,
patchwork like you did for Biohunter? What would you do with it, just hypothetically?
yeah. That's something I had given a little bit of thought, even though I've kind of been like, not yet. Um, to decide would I want to hear other voices in it besides my own. Again, knowing that it's my own work. The books that I've done, I do male, female voices all the time without making it all sound like Monty Python. And so, but then it's a matter of like, would it lend more though to have true female voices where needed, right? Or other men's voices for some characters that might lead a little more emphasis to the character, or give maybe a different taste that I may not have thought of. It's always interesting to have somebody else read your work out loud or whatever and come back and tell you how they saw a character, how they heard a character in their own head. So I don't know for sure. I would probably initially think I would just do it myself, but it isn't beyond my saying, you know what, actually, let's revamp this and go like multicast, you know. Or that new thing a lot of people are doing is also the two character duet kind of thing where there's two main characters that kind of read. It's not that it's written that way, but then there's always that possibility of how might you do something along those lines, you know?
I was presumptuous enough to try to do the audio of my book, and you and I talked about
Yes,
that.
I remember. Yeah.
And the first iteration, I did it in sections, and I actually usurped one of my podcast shows, the No Hair All Heart show, and then I had this serialized episodes of me doing the audiobook of my own book,
There you
and
go.
I got about halfway through it, so
Yeah.
it was pretty good, and I got a pretty good response. Again, they
Yeah.
know I'm amateur VO guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it was fun. And then the light bulb went off. This is great. I'm going to recruit friends and family for each voice, and I'm going to just edit. I'm going to go on DaVinci, and I'm just going to edit all this.
There you
An
go.
absolute cataclysmic disaster.
Oh,
Scheduling people,
don't
getting
forget.
people to participate, getting the sound levels right. It
Yeah.
was a hashtag epic fail. It
Oh
just did
no.
not work. And you
Yeah.
can appreciate that. You're a professional. And
Yeah.
you must
Yeah.
get this a lot. It's like people playing doctor all the time. That's easy. I can do it, right?
100%. Yeah, you hear that, and even on the books where I have been involved in multicast recording, the production house that I've worked with about 6, 7 different times now, even them, they reach out to everybody and say, "Yeah, give us your schedules." Then they've got to put all the schedules together. And sometimes I end up having to record at like 6:30 a.m. my time, or 8:30 p.m. my time, because people are in East Coast or whatever, schedules change. And then when you're on the thing, when you're recording, you still have to record it into your own system and get a good clean recording, but you're on Zoom, sometimes listening, and then the dialogue you hear from other people doesn't sound great, or it's broken up, and you're like, was that any good? What's that guy doing? So what do they think of me? So yeah, that, like, what you hear when you're recording it and then you send your stuff in and they put it all together, then when you finally get that back, it can sound amazing. But even one of the last books I did, they ended up having to ask people to kind of go back in and re-record because the levels, they just couldn't make it, happen. So as much as technology is amazing, there's stuff like Source Connect where you can literally like be recording with a studio and they're grabbing your audio right now, live, if you have a good internet connection and all of that. So there are tools out there that can do it, but not everybody has it. Certainly not in the audiobook realm. That's really, in my opinion, more for like real voiceover, commercials and animated series and good stuff like that. So yeah, it's certainly not the easiest thing to do. I mean, like I said, I've only done the one full book so far, and I would love to do more, but that was the challenge, getting audio levels to match between characters and myself, so.
Logistics for me was only part of the problem. The even bigger problem was to just get folks to really understand the character and
Of course.
the context. So when I did my own audiobook,
Yeah.
there's male, female characters of various ages. There's a transgendered character, and they're
Mhm.
multi-ethnic too. So I have this cauldron of diversity in my book.
Right.
So I did the Monty Python a little bit,
Yeah.
and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, and sometimes I just gave up and just read it as Mookie, and that's I'm doing a character.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it was acceptable for just a
Yeah.
first really rough draft. So then when I took it to the next level and I recruited all these people, they didn't even read the book. They had no context.
Right.
So I tried to coach them, which
Yeah.
is, the
Yeah.
character at this point is feeling a little bit melodramatic, but keep in mind that this is a satirical, very much a parody. They just didn't know what the F I was talking about. And I
Right.
confused them, and
Right.
it completely short circuited the process.
Right.
So it went one way or another. They were gross exaggerations of what they were trying to interpret my direction was
Yeah.
trying to accomplish, or they were completely flat,
Yeah.
and it just didn't work out at
Well, and
all.
that's interesting because even with the one book, I know that Ingrid was directing two of the voice actors to for how that she wanted some of it to sound, and then when I was putting it all together, I was like, well, that's not how I would have done it.
Exactly.
That's not how I wanted it to sound. Like, I got to make this work. So then I was like, but then I was like, well, at least they gave me 3 takes, right? That was my only thing. I was like, give me 3 separate takes of every line, different emphasis. I had to. There was a few. I even took like the first part of this line and the middle of that one, and you know. So
That's pretty good. So you went a little bit Stanley Kubrick on this with multiple takes, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
gave you more latitude
yeah.
to flex it out and to adapt the different interpretations of the
The only
character.
way. The only way to do it, just from my experience of the few I've done, they usually do that too. Like, we'll do the read through, but a lot of times they'll stop and be like, "Can you just give me that same line like 2 more ways, right?" And then just stop and let you do it a couple of different ways, just in case the intonation is slightly different, because there's nothing worse than two characters having a dialogue in an audiobook and they doesn't seem like they're in the same room at all.
That's
So
the other thing, is getting it to sync, which is,
yeah,
in the book, there might be two characters. They're not only physically present together in the scene, but they're emotionally enmeshed.
right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so easy to get a disconnect. And if you're
Yeah.
recording separately, then
Yeah.
that just exaggerates the fragmentation of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure. If I were doing any multicast thing, as much as I thought like, oh, I'd just send out the files to the different people and tell them that I'd like, no, I'd have to get specific characters together at the same time to at least give a read together so they'd feel like what it's like to hear and listen, to the other's responses.
When Pixar does the stuff too, you've got a lot of celebrity actors where scheduling is obviously a major nightmare and it's very
Sure,
expensive.
sure.
But when you see the outtakes and the B-roll and you get the old school DVD of,
Yeah,
the making of,
Yeah.
You see Eddie Murphy and Adam Sandler standing next to each other in the same room, mic'd up,
Yeah.
because they need that interplay for this very reason, right?
I often I often think when I'm recording, because I do punch and roll. So if I make a mistake, I can click a button, it backs up 3 seconds, and I can continue, right? But before I learned how to do that really well, I used to just like snap my fingers to make a marker on the file and I just redo it. And then I had all these crazy sort of B roll of me flubbing. I never had the time to do it, but I always thought it would be funny to go and put that together for the author to be like, here's all the stuff I did so completely wrong, and how bad some of the words, tongue twisters that you don't expect them to be. And you read two words together and you're like, I can't even, yeah, yeah,
I've done many solo podcasts where I just hit the hot mic and I start to bloviate.
yeah,
And I do minor editing just to make sure that if I really screw up, at least I can eliminate that section. But I'm usually pretty good at just shooting the shit.
yeah,
But there have been various instances where I do make a big mistake and I stop and then restart. And then usually I get angry at myself and say, ah, shit, or, F bomb it. And
yeah.
then I'll forget. I'll do a search through the transcript on Riverside to edit it out.
Oh
And I
no.
think a few of these have gone out
You're like,
with me
okay,
with me not identifying and clipping the bit. So,
right.
again, it's way more complicated, folks, than it
Yeah.
seems. And it falls into the realm of true production.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing is that if and when the time comes, definitely there's an audio book to be done. It's about kind of when I didn't really think about what you just said earlier about some people just won't hear it if you don't do it. That's their
Exactly.
thing. That's their reading, right?
Again, I'm just the bald guy here on the other side. I would respectfully suggest that I think your book will get way more expanded reach potential
Yeah.
if you just get that audiobook out there. And especially from a guy like you, you're an audiobook dude. You don't even have to hire the talent. You are the talent.
Yep. I guess that's going to have to be the next in the queue.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. Don't wait for some a-hole to judge your book.
Right.
5 stars or one. Just
Yeah.
go
True.
for it. I think you do a terrific job. Uh, I lucked out with one of these. I don't want to share this apocryphal story. You might get a kick out of it. So I joined my sister's writing club for a stint.
Uh-huh.
Monday mornings, they're in Cincinnati. I'm up at 6:30. We're sharing content, reading it out loud. There is a Cornish poet named Bert Biscoe, and he's loaded with the accent, and he's got the goatee, and he sits in his labyrinthine library, and he's got his tea, and he
Right.
has an exquisite accent, especially to my ears. So I rewrote one of the chapters in the sci-fi book in the
Uh-huh.
first person to enable him not only to say the dialogue, but to narrate the whole damn thing. So
Nice.
I still have his clip of doing the alien spider with the instantiation engine. It's a cylinder that can reproduce anything imaginable. That's the idea. So
Right, right.
it's like Borges' library, only it's not books, every
Yeah,
possible book.
yeah,
It's got
yeah.
every possible thing in it.
Hmm.
So it's a cool concept, and I never thought of this spider alien who's hanging his web over the jar
Right.
would be a Cornish accented character. I
Yeah.
thought he knocked it out of the park. Now the reason I bring it up is he does spoken poetry his whole life. For 50 years, he's been in the town square reading his poetry.
Wow.
And there's a talent to what you do, and there's a talent to what this guy does.
Oh, for sure.
So going back to what we were saying is everyone thinks, you could just bypass professional talent.
Right.
And unless you're a Renaissance man or woman and
Right.
you're able to just don a hat and knock everything out of the park, which is nobody on earth,
Yeah. Yeah.
get the right person for the right job, and
Yeah.
and you're it for audio,
Yeah.
and now you could be it for writing, where you could adopt another skill.
It's interesting because I 100% agree with you. And a lot of people have also asked me in the realm of, the AI, like, oh, are you afraid for your job? I'm like, no, not at all. I have even tested some of the AI programs, and none of them can give thought and feeling to anything. They can pause, they can whisper, they can, try to be have some intonation. They can't understand what they are reading to the level that anyone that is in the audiobook realm should be worried about anything, in my opinion. It's not even close. And I use AI for fun sometimes on my Instagrams or whatever when I'm lazy and don't want to get dressed. So, you know, but that's interesting because I was like, you can even throw them into some programs that'll take your PDF file and read it to you if you don't mind listening to a monotone-ish thing that just has no clue as to how to read each sentence. So there is a true talent to reading with and understanding and feeling the emotion and bringing the emotion and the emphasis and the pauses and the thoughts and everything that a character or narrator or the book deserves can't be done in any other way at this time.
1,000%. You can get
Yeah,
your Uncle Joe or Aunt Sylvia to do your
yeah,
audiobook,
yeah,
and maybe it'll get close to a Chat GPT or a Claude, right?
yeah, yeah.
So by nature, when you suck the life out of the contextual interpretation and an emotion of the
Right,
reading,
right.
then it becomes literally generic. So
Yeah,
hiring an AI to do it is akin to hiring a human who's got no understanding of
yeah,
subtext
yeah,
or
for
what's
sure.
actually going on, right?
Even from the realm of, I thought about like, oh, maybe if it was a business book and I'm just literally writing like, here's how to, do a thing. Maybe in then, but even then, I think that they just might lose the interest of the person listening as well. So, for me personally, I don't even think it's on the radar to be concerned about at this point.
I think that that's spot on. When I tried to coach Bert, the Cornish poet, before he read this, and in my novel, which is this zany Douglas Adams
Yes.
meets Hunter S. Thompson, William Gibson kind of adventure,
Yep.
the two chapters he did were the real hard science fiction. So I go deep into the philosophy, I do some math. It
Yeah. Yeah.
shifts gears radically. So I felt I needed to coach Bert,
Yeah.
explain the concepts and what the spider was doing, and he just told me to shut up. He said, "I got this."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he understood all the depth of what I was getting at, but
Right.
he had the natural talent that you're describing,
Yeah.
which is to understand the narrative and the story
Yeah.
and to empathetically put himself and act. It's acting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a skill, folks.
Yeah.
It's not just John Travolta getting lucky. He's good at what he
It
does.
used to be called audio reading or voice reading, if that's all it were. But it takes an actual skill to bring the depth of the characters to life. It's not about just like, well, what funny voice will I use to differentiate this guy from that guy? Because then you can get your kid's kid to do it or whatever.
Which I tried.
Yeah, yeah. You still won't get good audio levels, but
The audio will suck, and guess what? The whole project is doomed to fail. I guess I'm learning, but it was a fun attempt to do, and that begs the question of me putting the audiobook out. So eventually, I'll figure that out too. Hopefully,
yeah,
before the sequel gets done.
something to revisit.
Yes,
But
yes, on the list.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you should. I remember we did have a conversation and you had sent me the info and I thought it was great what I got to read. And it was very whirlwind in my head, storytelling, all over
Yeah,
the place.
fast and
Yeah,
intense.
yeah, yeah. But at that time too, I think I was in the middle of like 3 different projects. So that's why I was like, but you never
Well,
know.
maybe I'll hit you up again if you've
Yeah,
got bandwidth. But the
yeah.
bigger tale, it's not about me; it's about you.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah. Well, we're just yik yakking and it's all good.
I just have the one top line question too, which is why speculative fiction for you? You brought up the business stuff. I know
Yeah.
you're doing some businessy stuff on the side too, because I see you
Yeah.
popping up on my Instagram feed.
Yeah.
So, why were you drawn to speculative fiction? Is it because you've been doing some of the audio in that genre, or do you have a natural predilection for science fiction and fantasy? What's your
Yeah.
connection?
I am a complete science fiction fantasy nut at heart. That is my go-to. Growing up, it was nothing but like John Carter of Mars series. What was his name? I have the series here. Tom Swift and his rocket ship when I was a kid. And all the sword and sorcery kind of stuff. Terry Brooks and the Lord of the Rings and those types of novels have just always been my thing. And I've tried to read other books and an occasional crime thriller, Tom Clancy kind of stuff. Those are great movies for me. They're just not a thing I ever read personally. Maybe I would read them in the car. you know, so, yeah,
I still love that. I
yeah,
think that the whole thing about language is its inherent plasticity.
yeah.
And when verbs get tweaked like that and
I know,
reinterpreted, either
right?
culturally through ethnic groups or through these new genres and modalities popping up, I think it's just super. It's
Oh
great.
no, for sure. No, it is funny, and it literally set me back when my friend was saying that to me. She's like, "Oh, I read 16 books." It's like, "What are you talking about? I know you're in a book club, but in a month, no one does that." And then she told me what she meant. I was like, "Aha."
And with AI, the keyboards could be just vanishing. I mean, why
Yeah,
would you go through the laborious process of translating thought into alphanumeric strings when you could just move the muscles in your face? And
yeah,
the interface is not only seamlessly interpreting your voice,
right,
but able to respond in kind,
right,
effortlessly. People
right.
are talking to their Claude bot. People are falling in love with their chatty friend.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes a huge difference. Even a little bit of what I did in the book came through my use of a little bit of AI of just talking it through in my own head, right? And this
Yeah.
new character idea, and then or just talking it out into. I do everything I do. I have a real day job. I still have to work, but I'm not famous on this book yet. Just kidding.
Begin with the end in mind.
Yeah,
Have
I talk
have
to
the vision.
text everything. I can't hardly even text on my phone anymore. I get mad when I'm in a room where I actually have to type on it because I can't just talk to my phone. So the stream of consciousness that just kind of comes out, definitely for me it was about like how can I do this in the most efficient manner to make that happen.
That doesn't surprise me at all. You're a voice guy, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with it. I think when you go back to the age of Homer
Yeah.
and the first epics were
Yeah.
spoken. They were memorized
Right.
generation to generation. They were finally written down.
Right.
But people didn't read them, didn't hang out on
No.
their leisure, on their lazy boy
I
and
know.
and read them. They were shared social experiences where they were recited, much like the Cornish poet has been reciting his stuff for decades. So I
Yeah.
think the return to that is its own kind of poetic irony,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
we're going full circle. This whole idea of writing is just a matter of translating ideas in a way that can be communicated
Right.
with practical use from
Right.
person to person asynchronously and then from generation to generation. But
Right.
now with digital, there's no reason to go through all that effort. And it
Oh yeah.
begs the question of what the hell writing is and is going to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even some of the simple edit stuff, I never really had to do it much as a writer previously because I was just writing some stuff. But in the audiobook realm, there's this amazing software that came out a few years ago that I use all the time for every audiobook I do because you can feed the manuscript into it. You do your own recording and then you upload your recording, and word for word, it's watching to tell you like you inserted a word here, you didn't do that one. Did you say this word? That's the wrong word. You added a
Yeah.
pause here. There's a 3-second pause. Did you mean to do that? And it literally can help you to determine, like, and then some of it is, look, spoken word. If I didn't change the thought process of a sentence, fine, done, moving on, right? But if it's a complete, like, oh gosh, I said the wrong word, now I'll go back and pick it up. And they're even trying to make it to where you could do all your update edits in that software. Now that's not working for me because I use my own DAW, but still, the idea is so cool. So, like, even writing my book, I mean, I'll admit I threw it into Microsoft Word and was like, grammar check, like,
most writers
basic.
are going further than that. They're
Yeah,
putting into the chatty bro, and they're having the AI like not only check for typos and
right,
grammar, but
right.
rewrite scenes more optimally. This is
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
becoming practice.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I can see how that can completely become a thing that people can do. And you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, whatever works for you, I guess is okay. I'm like, as long as this is my idea, this is my story. If I use a little tweaking here and there for something, I'm not the end of the world. I know there's a lot of discussion about like, and I don't want something to be written fully by AI because again, just the way I feel about it doing an audiobook, I feel the same about its writing capability. You're going to be able to know when the word is someone else's, you know. So,
So stay true to yourself.
yep.
And while you're doing so,
Yeah.
explore different opportunities to express your creativity. And you've done exactly that with this exercise.
All the latest tools, be aware of them at least. They may not all work. They may not all be the best thing for you, but some of them can be very helpful. So,
And use those tools to explore other opportunities to express yourself in different modalities if you can.
agreed. Yeah, agreed.
And you've done that. And I wish you the best of luck. It's not just luck, it's talent and determination. And it's
Thank you.
awesome that you've entered the realm of the author. Why? Why not?
Now I don't know if it's going to stop because now there's all these other ones pouring out. So we'll see what happens.
That's the greatest thing of all, right? Tapping into the
Yeah.
endless juicy trove of stuff inside your own
Yep.
head and heart.
Yep.
That
Yep.
to me is
Sure.
the definition of happiness. Your fates can rise and fall. You could be rich or poor. You got fired. You got hired.
Right.
But this is something that we do for ourselves at every
100%.
end,
Yep.
every creative day, and it's so satisfying. And it's satisfying talking to a fellow kindred creative soul. Thank you so much, Scott, for making time in your even more busy day. Now that you're
Thank
wearing
you for
an extra
inviting
hat.
me. This was fun.
Super fun. Like, comment, share, subscribe, everybody. It's Mr. Scott Allen, doubling down his audio VO work with his new book, The Aerie Protocol, which is available on Amazon. I'll have the link in the description below. Got pre-order for the Kindle. You've done kind of a reverse
Yeah.
engineering of the launch. The
Yeah,
Kindle
what I'm
comes out
paperback and
after the
hardcover.
paperback, folks.
That's right.
All right. Good for you, Scott. Thanks so much. And I'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
See how things are going. And for your next one too. Don't stop. Keep going, buddy.
Thank you. That'd be great. Thank
Dam
you.
bursting for you creatively. Great to see.